Something people say a lot these days is, how did we get here? People say, oh my gosh, the world is going crazy. And I'm like, it's got here because of your silence. My name is ZUBY, and this is my story. I was born in the UK, in England specifically, to Nigerian parents, and I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I lived there for about 19 or 20 years in total. My childhood was great. Honestly, it was amazing. I'm from an amazing family. I grew up in a great place, and somewhere that was very truly diverse, where from a very, very young age, I was encountering all sorts of different people. And I think that's a core thing that really sort of shaped my perspective and the way that I see the world even now as an adult. So I've really been heavily exposed to 4 cultures in particular. So Saudi Arabia, the UK, USA, because I was actually in an American school up until 5th grade. People always get confused by my accent and think I'm American, but it's because I went to an American school for such a long time. And then, of course, Nigeria as well, Igbo specifically. I did really well in school. I got accepted to Oxford University. It was kind of strange that I ended up becoming a professional musician. Funnily enough, when I was a kid, I didn't actually like music. I didn't particularly like music. I didn't start listening to it until I was 12 or 13, and I got stuck in an airport in Paris, and I had about a 24-hour layover. I was by myself, I was bored. I had my MP3 player at the time and my headphones and a pen and a pad, and I just started writing down some lyrics, and I was like, oh, okay, this is something, I can do it. I just kept writing, and I started recording stuff into my phone, just recording acapellas, and I played it to some of my siblings and my cousins, and they were like, oh, cool, ZUBY can rap. And then I got back to university, and one of my friends, Chris, actually had a basic recording studio in his dorm room. So I'd go in there, download beats off of the internet, and I just started recording tracks. And I actually released my first album when I was still in university. And it was an 8-track album. I put it all together, made a few CDs to begin with, started out with just 50, sold them all in about a week. So I started performing in the city, building up a bit of a name for myself. That was when it went from just a hobby to something I was earning some income from, and that people liked and were demanding, and people were coming to my shows. Ended up selling over 25,000 albums just independently, hand to hand in the UK. I've grown my audience from virtually nothing up to, 1 million plus followers currently on social media. And it's been a long way. I feel like I've still got a long way to go with everything I'm doing. But there's been a lot of work that's been put into it, and I'm excited about the future. I don't love conflict, but I don't shy away from it. I quite like arguing. I quite like debates. Some people are just more agreeable, and they don't want to rock the boat or, say something that potentially could upset somebody out there or somebody out there might disagree with. I don't mind doing that. I'm happy to do that. Sometimes I like it, and I like to have my ideas challenged because it makes me sharper, and I don't want to be wrong. I'm seeking the truth. I'm always seeking the truth, and I'm happy to say I don't know. I'm happy to say I was wrong. If I have a belief and someone comes with new facts or data or just a better argument, I'm happy to go, you've got a good point there. Let me adjust what I think based off of that. I think that's where wisdom comes from. And in order to get that, you have to be willing to go through those uncomfortable conversations or have those ideas challenged. So for me, as someone who's a truth seeker and someone who's just trying to understand the world and understand the human condition, as far as I'm concerned, while I'm here on this earth, one of my missions is to do my best to understand that and not attacking everybody who dares challenge your belief, which is, we have way too much of that right now, or not be willing to talk to someone because they might challenge that belief. It's like every time someone does that, they're literally missing an opportunity to make themselves smarter, wiser, and more empathetic, and to make themselves a better person. So a big turning point for me was in February 2019. I posted a 9-second video of me doing a 230 kilogram deadlift. And I said, I keep hearing about how biological men have no strength advantage over women, so watch me destroy the British women's deadlift record without trying. P.S. I identified as a woman whilst lifting the weight. Don't be a bigot. I just put that out there like I put out a lot of other content. I didn't think that it was gonna become this huge global viral phenomenon that would introduce me to millions of people and get millions of views. And I think what's interesting with that is it wasn't just that individual piece of content that went viral. I myself was able to go viral through it. So it was a strange introduction to me, but that's how ZUBY came on a lot of people's radar. When I speak, when I write, when I make songs, I often don't want to specifically tell people what to think, but I want people to think. People have forgotten that freedom and liberty is not the human default. Actually, the default is authoritarianism. The fight for freedom is not something that just happened back in 1940 or whatever, and now we've got it forever. It's like, no, there's always going to be the authoritarian creep. The role of the government, the state, is always going to expand and overreach, and people need to be continually pushing back against that. The statement being colorblind is racist is absurd. The notion that everybody or most people deeply care about the color of other people's skin or their ethnic origin, it's nonsensical. I just want to be viewed as ZUBY, right? I'm me, I'm an individual. One of the least interesting things about me is that I am melanated. Yes, my family background is from Africa, so lo and behold, I have certain characteristics. Wow, it says nothing about the person. It's not interesting. What does it say about character? Nothing. What does it say about beliefs? Nothing. What does it say about your individual experiences? Nothing. People I hang out with, people I like or dislike, it's totally based. It's all based on their character and their behavior, and most people are like this. Not only is it false, it's also negative, especially if you're pushing this on children. You're actually giving them a really warped and twisted worldview, which is going to harm them in the long term. I straight up reject it, and I challenge it when I see it. That's something I'll jump in on it, and I'll be like, no, that's not cool. Something people say a lot these days is, how did we get here? People say, oh my gosh, the world is going crazy. And I'm like, it's got here because of your silence. That's how it got here. So if you continue to remain silent, if you continue to play games, if you continue to do and say things you know do not make sense or are not right, where do you think it's going to be in 5 years? Where do you think it's going to be in 10 years? In fact, if you have children, think about the world you want them to inherit. Do you want your children to grow up in a world where they have less freedom? No, right? You want your children to grow up in a world with more liberty and more prosperity and more opportunity. And we've seen many times in history what happens when people go along with things that are wrong and unethical. And so we need to remember and have some humility that we are not so much wiser than everyone who came before us, that we're suddenly immune to all of these mental and cognitive flaws, or that we're immune to groupthink or going along with the herd, or that, cowardice even. I think there's a pandemic of cowardice right now. And I just think if everybody could be 10%, 20% more bold and forthright and outspoken in the face of nonsense or in the face of things that are wrong, then we can get right back on a proper trajectory towards more liberty and more kindness and more tolerance and more human flourishing in general. Diversity doesn't just mean gender, sexuality, and race, right? It goes far beyond that. Diversity of thought is far more important than anything else. And everyone is an individual. Just by someone being a white man or a black woman, therefore have the same perspective and are somehow representative of white men in general or black women in general, as if there are not hundreds of millions or billions of people who fit into these categories, who are all their own individuals with their own character, personality, thoughts, ideas, experiences. Equality, treating people actually equally, not treating these people better and these people worse because you think this group is the oppressors and this group is the victims, so therefore I don't actually need to be equal, right? We can treat men like trash, but we'll treat women better because women in the past perhaps were oppressed. Right? No, that's not equality. I'm about actual diversity, actual tolerance, actual equality, right? So these buzzwords that people like to throw around, think about what they really, really mean and embody them, because what you do and the way you behave and the way you treat people says infinitely more about you than what you claim to believe and what words you're throwing out there. And this is the difference between virtue signaling and actually being virtuous.